Hello everybody, welcome to Read At Your Reality with Reese. I am your host, and on today's video, what to do with the 3D, your thoughts, fears, and your doubts. We're going to answer a question from the channel here, and basically it revolves around how do you deal with your specific person or anything in the 3D world practically. What should you actually be doing when you have thoughts like, what if it never happens? Other fearful thoughts from the ego, part of the question, the ego. Should you just observe and recognize that these thoughts are not you and that you are awareness? Wonderful question. Hit a lot of beats there, and I'm going to answer each and every one of them throughout this video, as well as a little bit more. Now, in the 3D world, I behave practically while something else is happening. That's basically the heart of what the question is saying that the person is doing and what we typically do in and as our 3D experience. Now, if you are aware of something else happening, as in something you desired that already exists over there, the split, and here is the 3D world you are experiencing, and you are being in the 3D world, experiencing your specific person in some way that you have to practically do something with. You are aware of a split. So which one to you is reality? That's the only thing you really need to concern yourself with here, right? If you are saying, I imagined something. Okay, if you imagine something, what is then the 3D world to you? See, if you can answer that, then you will recognize why doing something practically doesn't actually make any sense whatsoever, because the 3D comes from the same awareness that is creating your imaginational end. It's not creating something separate. So you are not actually the physical form in the 3D world. You are the awareness simultaneously creating the experience of both. So when you recognize yourself as that awareness, the whole idea of what to do in the 3D world does not really make sense anymore. The behavior is either coming from I am or I am not. There's no correct choice. Thoughts like, what if it never happens or what if it ends are only messengers showing you what you are focused on right now. They don't have any control over your free will. There's nothing to do with them once you know this, and you know this, so there's nothing to do with them. The ego now, it is not a real thing that exists apart from you. The fact that it's even conceptualized is its own paradox of existence, right? It's not something separate from you. It is just a manner in which you are referring to something. And if you have never heard the word ego, you wouldn't believe there was something opposed to you. You would just think that there are thoughts. You'd see it's just another part of you that's no longer chosen. And here's the thing, right? And I'll give you like a really fun example here. And looking at this, let us say you are hungry. You desire to eat. Now, where does that actual expression come from? You see, you are hungry. Your body is in requirement of something. You're going with the cyclical natural unfolding of reality, right? I live, we eat, we breathe, etc. You're kind of going with the flow here, right? Living also has implications: breathing, heart beating, eating, right? Drinking water. You have these natural expressions of existing. They kind of go with the system. So when you're hungry, the system is basically saying, hey, we need food to continue going in this manner. So where does the experience of actually eating, which is an illusion, come from? It's you as awareness. You desire food. You make the imaginational scene that you don't even notice, I'm eating. And then you naturally go about getting food in some manner, right? Now, you are full. Do you want to eat anymore? No, because now you're no longer focused on the version of yourself who has been, that was hungry, wanting to eat, and is full. That's what your desire was, right? Then you have thoughts about, well, do I want to eat more? Well, yeah, I guess, because, it tasted really good. I'm not hungry, but it tasted so good and I enjoy it. Now, that's not necessarily a separate identity coming from you. It is a separate version of yourself making itself known as a desire of what you can experience right now. Eating more. You call it the ego because if you have a separate identity that you are more focused on, being healthier, eating less or whatever it is, you will say, oh no, my ego wants to eat more. But the ego doesn't exist just because it's in opposition to what your other experience is. It's just a polarizing experience. It's the same you that's doing something different. It's the same you that is doing that. It's the same you that is doing this. That's all the ego is. So it's the same thing when I'm fearing something is happening. It's just another experience that you can experience right now, but you don't need to because it doesn't do anything. So the ego is not actually a thing. It is a thought about reality and alternative experiences of reality. And look where it is in that diagram that I have, right? Source. The only creative force is source. The ego doesn't do anything. It's just noise. Noise about other things that can happen. Thoughts and feelings about the system that you are experiencing within the system. You have to have information about the system. It's like you're playing a game, you have a heads-up display. The ego is saying, hey, you're running out of this and that. You have adverts playing when you're watching YouTube. The ego is saying, hey, do you want to buy this? Hey, do you want to watch this? Hey, this is the other thing. This is random stuff that is just there. You're talking to a friend and then you remember a conversation you had 3 months ago. Say, oh yeah, hey, you remember this thing. But if you're more conscious, you say, you remember this conversation you had 3 months ago and you can bring it up or not. Because it's just more experiences within you as that same awareness, but it's no longer chosen when you start fighting it. When you start fighting, you think it's a real thing and you think it's a real thing called the ego, but it is not. And now, children do not think like that. If they are imagining themselves as a fireman, that's it. They are a fireman, running around the house with a stick, pretending it's a hose, putting out imaginary fires. There's no but. There's no the ego thing. They have the same thoughts, but they don't care, right? It's just no. Or suddenly, okay, firefight is over, I'm a cowboy now, and start trying to ride the chair like a horse, right? They don't care. It's just, I am this thing now. That's all. And as adults, we think, oh no, they're being silly, they're being playful, they're playing in their imagination, they're fooling around with reality. No, they are having the actual experience of whatever it is they are considering fun and being right now. Your thought about that is what you are considering reality. You think that this 3D world is more real than what they are experiencing, but it's not. See, whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Right? Matthew 3 and 4, right? So now, what Jesus meant is not bow before or be less than a child. And the original word for humble comes from that Greek word, type and new. I'm not entirely sure how you say it. To make law, to be simple, open, and free from the idea of self-importance. It wasn't about submission, right? It was about returning to the natural awareness that a child lives in. That be fully what you are being aware of fully. Where there's no comparison, no hierarchy, no greater, no lesser, nothing preventing you from being a fireman or a cowboy, right? To become as little children is to be fully absorbed in your imagination or scene. Again, focused in living your dream, not believing in the up and down or 3D world as a separate thing. When a child is imagining they are a fireman, they are playing as a fireman in both worlds. They are playing as a cowboy in both worlds. They're doing it now, not later, not then. And I know the question is, but if I'm imagining being my specific person, how can I do that when we're not talking, or we don't know each other, or we haven't met, or I don't know anybody, or something like that. You see how immediately we come up with some reason as to why we can't imagine it fully and then assume the reality is actually unfolding. You see, a child doesn't actually want to be a fireman. A child doesn't actually want to be a cowboy in that moment. They are being it and experiencing it in the literal right now moment of it. You are being that, and you are being that identity it's for real for right now. So assume that you are being that identity that it is real for right now because it's who you imagine yourself to be. Ideas like ego are created from the very perspective itself. So, and it is just from that a perspective, the ego in this way is nothing more than thoughts from that perspective coming from awareness. And what I mean by that is, when you have a 3D perspective, the thoughts that you have about said 3D perspective are coming from divinity, but they are about the 3D perspective. It doesn't mean it's more real than anything else. You as awareness don't get hungry. You as awareness don't need sleep. You as awareness don't need anything. Your 3D body has those illusionary requirements. So that is the ego, but it's nothing more than a perspective. God doesn't eat, sleep, or drink, right? But it has those creative aspects and experiences within itself for the living in the experiencing of it. But ultimately, you as awareness don't do those things. You are experiencing those things being done. And those parts where the 3D is being experienced from the 3D is what we call ego, but it's nothing. And you can look at it like this. Right? I have this cool analogy in the middle of making this. A child afraid of the dark, they feel real fear, right? They're really terrified. And I remember when I was a child, I was terrified of something or other, right? Oh, I used to have like super vivid nightmares. Right now, I have this now, and this actually leads me to this point, right? They feel real fear because they think there's something lurking in the dark. Their nightmares are terrifying. Like you'd be scared to watch a horror movie because you are scared of what you are going to imagine and feel super real later. So you create that imaginational scene right then and there without even knowing you're doing it. Right? The fear is tied to that imagined danger. But when you recognize yourself as awareness and you start asking about the doubt, fear that pops up, right? You still feel that fear, but you know there's nothing there now. So you feel that fear differently. You don't react as if there's something hiding in your cupboard. Right? The fear exists, but it's not caused by an actual threat. You recognize fully that you are feeling something, but you know there's nothing to be afraid of, even if you are feeling the fear and doubt of it. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. That knowing, that greatness of knowing you are greater than anything. That means anything you are contemplating, you are greater than it, regardless of what you are contemplating. And Jesus said, be like a child with their imagination, embodying it fully. Now, the difference here. A child doesn't know that the fearful thoughts are not real because they are super real to them, right? Unlike a child, adults stay in that fear where a child does not. See, no matter how scared a child is, they can be laughing the next moment. And you've seen that. The child just starts crying out of nowhere in the middle of a mall and you're like, ah, and then you're like, just take your child and go away. And then you're like, okay. And then the next moment you put them down and they just snap into something else. Why? And because they're fully being terrified or crying in the moment, but they don't hold on to that moment. It's gone as if it never happened because they're a literal different version of themselves, right? Now, an adult, we all have our hiccups, right? An adult can stay focused, but they can stay focused on that fear, believing that it's valid because, oh no, I'm smarter, I'm more mature, I'm more world-weary, my fear is valid. So they stay in that and they keep creating it over and over again. See the difference? Where a child usually can't stay focused, but because but doesn't know the fear isn't real in that way. There's nothing in their cupboard, but they feel it fully. But they don't care after that because they're happy. They just keep going. But now we think that, well, no, it's a valid fearful thought that I'm having. It's a real experience that I'm having. So I can't really let it go. It's a real thing. They can really not want to be with me. I can really not get that job. I can really say the 3D experience is real. It's a real experience, but there's no monster in the cupboard. They are creating it metaphysically, and so are you. Basically, as awareness, you are calling for thoughts of I am not, which it also contains because you are infinity. That's where it comes from. Identifying with thoughts of the 3D self-projection, you don't have to avoid it, only recognize that's all it is. It's the same idea, right? Different screen, computer, phone, TV, whatever. Those are different experiences being called of the same story. Now, the ego are thoughts about the 3D screen, and awareness thoughts are about the knowing screen, right? But you're just knowing or pointing at yourself here. But it's all just reality itself. See, the ego is just like a library of books, right? It's other books on the shelf. You are awareness and you are the library itself and you are everything in it. And because this is an active experience, those books seem to jump at you. And suddenly you start telling stories like, I can't get there because the thought said I can't get there. and it might be right. Because how do I know I can get there when I'm not there yet? Can you see how eternal that sentence is? It is a never-ending loop. I can't get there because how do I know I can get there when I'm not there yet and no one else has gone there? But I'm the one that has to go there. But if I have already imagined myself there, how can I not get there? This is all. You can loop it any way you like and then just end that I am there. That's all it is. Awareness reading one of its own stories and mistaking it for the truth. That's all you're doing. You are awareness reading a story of doubt, reading a story of fear, reading a story that the ego is a thing, reading a story that, I forgot the fourth one I mentioned. Circumstances and conditions are a thing, it's fine. And you can pick it up, read it, or just set it down and ignore it. Not ignore it, but more that know that it's irrelevant. You can't ignore it if you tried. You were never the book, you were always the reader, observer, but you are also the book creator. And you create it from your very self. And I'm going to close off in a different area. So, remember this. There's no split between your imagined self that you are imagining right now and the 3D moment you are experiencing that imaginational scene as. Because you are, as awareness, creating the 3D moment automatically, but what's being created automatically as the 3D scene that you are experiencing is what you are imagining yourself as a knowing. The imaginational scene is just how you experience the parts that light you up excitedly in that timeline of events. So because you are experiencing going to the end of being that identity day to day in that imaginational scene, that same knowing that you are, that same knowing that creates that scene, which is you, is also creating the 3D world that you are living in. But you are creating the 3D world that you are living in from a different moment of now in that same timeline. The assumption is then how your 3D self navigates the timeline that it's in, assuming that because you have imagined the world you wish to inhabit, you are assuming without any evidence that 3D has to say otherwise or for it, that you are actually in that world you have decided and chosen to be in and as imagination, which is really true reality. Because remember, your true self is awareness. When you are consciously knowing yourself, you are knowing I am awareness. So as awareness, whatever you become immediately in imagination and immediately in the 3D experience projection at the exact same moment, because there's only one moment. So you are creating two things at once here, experiencing. You are experiencing your end, which is where you are imagining, and you are experiencing the physical version of yourself, knowing you are experiencing that end as well, simultaneously. And that's what's unfolding. So when you ask the question again, just to dial it back here a bit, loop it together, that's why asking the question, well, what do I do in my 3D? Nothing. Because nothing you can do or don't do or will do or shouldn't do or do makes any sense now, because you've already created that experience. So whatever you do must have already been done, and it's an experience of you being that identity. But the more you keep on checking yourself that, hey, don't do this and do that, or do this and do that, or maybe I should do this to try and make it happen, that's where you are kind of losing the thread a little. So drop all of that and drop worrying about making a mistake as well. Make the mistake. It doesn't matter, because reality doesn't get created from the mistake. It gets created from awareness. Just be aware that, okay, I felt like I make a mistake there, but I still know that I am awareness. I still know that I am in my end. I still know I am the version I chose to be. That's only what's unfolding. And you know what? I'm going to forgive myself here for thinking otherwise for any kind of moment whatsoever. And that's who I am. That's who you are. That's who we all are. And I am your host, Reese. This is Reality with Reese. Thank you all for being here. Much love, much light. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the comments. Last couple were so wonderful. Thank you for the liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the TikTok page. Thank you for joining the Facebook page. Thank you for the emails, and I will see you all in the next one.